Well, this album goes to show some of the things that I love about contemporary progressive rock, as well as traditional progressive rock and prog as like the big P word, as well as some of the drawbacks and some of the issues that people have with this musical expression. So yeah, let's unpack this one. Tearoom by Keor. So, Keor is the project from multi-instrumentalist of Victor Miranda Martin. He has done some really fantastic works lately. He's put out three albums, including this one here, starting off in 2016 with Hive Mind, 2018 with Petrichor, and now Tearoom. I find he does wear his influences on his sleeve to the point where it's no longer taking inspiration from and it's almost plagiarizing. I love his ability to create these really grand scale sounds and building a song up into grand crescendos. The boy definitely has talent in creating these soundscapes. And we come into Tearoom now, his latest project, and it holds some items that I both love as well as some items that I'm not too big of a fan of. Let's talk a little bit about this album overall, and then I'll use the examples of the songs to kind of put those into context. First off, some of the things that I really do love. I love the experimentation of this stream of consciousness narrative flow that we have on here. It feels very much like the soundtrack to some of those like stream of consciousness novels like Ulysses, where it's just kind of whatever comes to mind, that's what you find on the page. And in some respects, like that has some really gold nuggets of brilliance, but you do kind of have to shift and wade through it. The one issue that I do have with this presentation is the song structures themselves and how the songs are presented. Because there's a number of moments on this album where the tracks, the song stops, but the track continues and then builds itself up into a completely different direction where even though I'm a big fan of tracks that change their direction or go somewhere else and develop and flow, this does make me wonder why even put down tracks at all if they do this kind of wiggling. Like really, there's only two tracks on here that have a consistent start and stop flow of music without being interrupted. The first is the second track of Blossom, and the other one is Underworld. But all the other tracks, the first track of just exclamation marks, so it just reminds me of like you know that kind of like where whatever it is, like it's intense. But Warlike, Took a Nap, Learning God in particular is probably the biggest issue of this, as well as Marta, I Am Keor. So out of the 7 tracks, 5 of them have this go, stop aspect of it. And in one hand, it does hammer home this concept of the train of thought and how scatterbrained you can be, as well as this whole daydream aspect that I feel is at the heart and the root of this album. I do feel as though one of the main themes is really constructing a reality that is your own, and reality is how you construct it. I do enjoy that kind of thought experiment with so many of these tracks having narration from this character of Keor that Victor is personifying. And that brings me into one of the more cringe aspects of this album a little bit, which is it's very self-indulgent. This album is extremely self-indulgent, and in one hand, it also, you know, because Keor, the character, is bearing so much on the floor here, it is very vulnerable in that sense as well. So I do have to applaud him for opening himself up. But this is also extremely self-indulgent and comes from a place of, I don't know. I don't want to say misplaced confidence because that's not quite right, but that's kind of the feeling that I have, you know, like, you know, those kinds of individuals that take a few of these philosophical classes or philosophy classes. And it's like, I get it. I can be this intellectual. And then they start talking about the very basis of some of these thought experiments and like what is life, how to live a proper life, and all those kinds of ideas. And so some of these ideas, and I'm using this word, as I usually do, as a descriptor rather than a negative, but it does feel very juvenile, very first steps. Yeah, because there are a lot of things like in the track of Underworld, one of the few tracks that actually feels like a start and stop full on track. We do have that idea of like, what is the devil? The devil is you, going down into hell, going into more of the seedier parts of your soul that you don't want to look at. And I do enjoy that presentation. Like I do enjoy Keor going deep inside, kind of surface level though, like just, you know, baby's first steps in terms of looking at the darker side, and coming about of saying, you know, who is the devil? The devil is you. Being like, yeah, the evil that is brought about within our world is brought about by humans. And I again, very surface level, I appreciate that it's on here, but it's the first couple of steps for a greater story that I feel needs to be told. And in and around this, we also have that concept of love, because in the first couple of tracks of either Blossom or Took a Nap, you do hear this, we are going to examine the stages of love and what love means. And so on here, especially with so much self-talk and self-doubt within the first track of you worthless piece of shit, you're horrible, you're bad, and this very negative self-talk that is being presented, it feels like one of the ways out and one of the ways to self-validate and have this kind of way of saying that you're worthy is through the expression of love of another. I do see that on this, and there are many points on this album, especially within the musical interlude that we have on Warlike, where the song just kind of stops and we're in this soundscape dream-like world where it's very bright and colorful, very pastel in presentation. It's very like soundtracky, and near the end it sounds like the guy is either eating very luscious juicy fruit, or he's macking out on somebody, and then he's woken up right at an alarm with Took a Nap, and he's like, oh, God damn it, you know? And so it does have that whole reality is what you can conceive of it, and your daydreams can be sometimes just as real, but you do have to come back to reality eventually, you know? And this is also imitated again on Marta and I Am Keor, the last track, where he does meet this person, and it feels very almost empty, like there isn't really that much of a connection. There's just an exchange of names. She says, I was meditating, hoping to meet somebody, and then, oh, I'm here. It feels very easy in that sense, and so I wonder if that is part of the daydream, and then by the end, he says, I need to return because my friends will think me crazy. And so again, it's that whole idea of daydreaming and coming back into reality. So yeah, it was a very interesting journey in terms of thematics on this album, and sometimes it lands and sometimes it falls flat. I wish that it had kind of stuck the landing a little bit more on this, and I kind of wonder what could have been done differently, and I don't know if it was anything that wasn't found on this album or anything that was found on this album. I think it was just kind of where I am in my life. And like, if I had listened to this about 10 years ago, I would have been like, this guy gets it. But since I've moved past that and kind of like, again, I don't want to say this as a positive or negative connotation, but since I've matured out of that realm, it does feel a little bit more like, oofa doofa. Some of the actual tracks on here do still have that wearing the influences on the sleeve. Not quite to the same extent that I found on Petrichor. I actually love the music that's found on this much more. I love how Keor is coming more into their own, finding their own musical expressions and really tapping into that. There's only maybe one or two points on this, on some of the smaller moments on Took a Nap and Learning God, that feel like Postcard, again, from Steven Wilson's Grace for Drowning. I don't know if he's moved quite enough away off of his training wheels to kind of get his own musical styles. But I do have good hope that the next album that we have from Keor will kind of have him coming completely into his own and not needing somebody else's musical expression to kind of help move his way. Because many points on this album, specifically the big buildups that we have from Learning God as well as Took a Nap, and Blossom, have those big crescendos, those big grandiose sounds of music that I really do love. And what keeps me coming back to Keor, as specifically Tearoom, time and time again, this is one of the thoughts that I keep coming back to. I'm not sure if this album is either too long or too short. Like, I wonder if this Tearoom expression of music would have been helped by tightening it up even more and having like a 20-minute song rather than these 7 divided tracks. Maybe it would have worked a little bit more. Or if you added maybe another 10 minutes worth of music to just flush out some of those other ideas that you had on this. But I don't know. I'm kind of trapped between the two of like, I don't know quite where to go. All I am here is with the music that I was presented. In the end, Tearoom from Keor on the one hand is a mess, but it's also quite beautiful. So it's a beautiful mess, which really at the end of the day is what life is all about. So I think in capturing that slice of life, free-flowing stream of consciousness thought, I think this album really does come to the bat and hit it hard. I think it's a great success in that sense. I just wonder what this would look like after a couple of years. I'm kind of leaning towards a download. I'm kind of wavering between a download and pick it up in physical format. Like, I'm kind of between those two. But for the time being, I'm kind of right at a download. It's a strong download. This is one that I would definitely encourage people check out. Give it a listen, see what you think, because there are some very beautiful moments off of this album. On pretty much every track, there's a moment of beauty. But that's about it. That's what I've got for Tearoom from Keor. What did you guys think? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Whatever you thought, let me know by commenting down below. As well, if you like what you see and you want to help support me, consider donating to my Patreon. I've left the link down below. Go and check it out. Even $1 a month really does go a long way. And you get your name at the end of the credits of all of this. So yeah, thank you all so very much for watching. If you want to see more of me, I've got my podcast. I also have the podcast that I've uploaded to YouTube. I've got a couple of those on there, and I hope to upload more. I've got my tabletop role-playing game channel that's getting off the ground. I've left all those links down below for you guys to check out. And yeah, that's all I've got. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, you guys are definitely the best. And until next time, notes out. And the searching will never end, 'cause I'll never